Hello, friends and companions. This is Jeff Allen with GetBetterSoon, the blog and podcast that help you to win at the game of life. We're going to get right into it today. Today's topic is the state of the modern dating landscape. So, just one quick note before we get in. Remember that if what I say isn't true about you, then it's not about you. So don't take offense. All right, so being single in modern society is both extremely fun and exciting, but it's also can be very difficult and lonely. On the plus side, right, we have freedom, we get to experience new people, we get to go on lots of dates, which can be fun. We're not tied down. We have lots of opportunities to explore the world, which is fantastic. On the flip side, the challenge is that most people do desire companionship. As I mentioned, it can be lonely, and anyone who says otherwise is trying to sell you something or lying, as they say. Let's get into it. We're going to talk kind of about how each sex/gender experiences the world and the challenges in particular that they face. We'll reverse social convention and talk about the boys first. So the first thing is that average men rarely match with women they find attractive on dating apps. And let's just admit, dating apps are pretty much how everyone is meeting these days. Probably, I forget the last statistics I saw, but I think it's like pushing 70 or 80% of relationships start on dating apps. So, and if given that's the case, if you're just an average dude, then it's going to be really, really hard for you to find love in this world, because most of the guys that are going to be able to have success on dating apps are 8s, 9s, and 10s, right? The best looking guys. And we'll come to this more in just a second. If you do get a date, or if you do get a match, there's extremely high rates of flaking and ghosting that men experience. Especially, I would say, flaking. Ghosting typically refers to people's experience of like they hook up or they go on a date and then the person just disappears and never talks to them again, which is obviously very shitty to do. But I think what men experience quite a lot is just a lot of flaking. I mean, like, and this isn't reflective of like the quality of the guy. Like, I've had women reach out to me on Instagram and be like, "Hey, I really want to hang out. Let's hang out." And I'm like, "Cool, let's hang out. Let's hang out Saturday. How about that? Let's meet at such and such place at 6." And then there's no response. And then I get a reply like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't check my IG, blah, blah, blah." And then it's like, okay, cool. How about Monday at 3 at such and such place? "Oh, yeah, that sounds good." And then nothing. So, like, in some cases, it's women who say that they want to hang out or match with you on a dating app and then just stop contacting you or flake on dates. And it's like, that's not on me. That's not on men. It's on the fact that today's women just, and again, this is if you're not a flaky person, ladies out there, then this isn't about you. But a lot of women are. It's just incredibly difficult and frustrating to deal with for my dudes out there. If you want to get off the apps, in-person approaches are becoming more difficult as well, both due to the fact that men increasingly, especially young men, are socially anxious, but also the women that they're trying to approach are increasingly socially anxious. You know what the issue is? This motherfucking thing right here. Our phones are awful, and they're teaching us to be dumb people who can't talk to other human beings and can't be in social situations. So, as I've mentioned before, get the fuck off of your fucking phone, please. I know that sounds really harsh, but like, we have to start managing our time on these things, or it's going to take over our lives. And for many people, it already has. But back to the topic, in-person approaches are a great way to meet. In fact, my primary focus, because the apps are pretty much garbage, I prefer just to try to meet women in real life, and I teach men actually how to do this. And it's how I met all my long-term relationship girlfriends and some of my short-term relationship girlfriends. But it's difficult, and for a lot of men, and a lot of times women don't even give us the chance to shoot their shot. If you read one of my recent posts on girl game 101, like one of the pieces of advice I give is like, don't just immediately shut a guy down. If he's, it takes a lot of balls for him to approach you. Like, give him a chance. If it's a little bit awkward, like help him out, especially if you think he's cute. And you know what is continually amazing is to see when women go out in big groups, like they like, and it's always the least attractive woman in the group. She's like, no, no thanks, we're out. And it's like, okay, like, well, you're dressed to the nines and you're out in a like public place where there's a lot of single people. It's extremely confusing for men that like you don't even want to talk to anyone. Like I guess if you're just here to get attention and like shoot men down, then like good job, but that's not exactly pro-social behavior. Let's just put it that way. Kind of a corollary to that that men experience is that like the most attractive women are often easiest to talk to and date, and that's odd. As I mentioned in the original blog post for this topic, I don't know if it's really worth getting into why that is. We could venture some things, but I think that's just going to come off as mean. I mean, it's just funny because again, I have been a dating coach. This is the experience that I've had, and it's the experience that my clients have. Where like the more attractive women they are, they're like nicer to people. They're nicer to guys, even if they shoot you down in the end. They're like, yeah, actually, I have a boyfriend, or no, I'm not interested. But like they're nice, they'll talk to you. Whereas like a lot of women who are, you know, quote unquote less attractive, just like won't even give you the time of day, which is, I again, I don't know how to explain that really. The other thing that I think men struggle with is we kind of start with a negative assumption until proven otherwise. Because a lot of men, which will come to like what women experience, but because a lot of men like play a lot of video games or smoke a lot of pot or aren't responsible, you know, women kind of think, oh, well, this guy's probably like that. He's probably not like this cool, you know, charming Prince Valiant or whatever. So it's kind of hard to, like, you're kind of starting from a negative assumption in the first place. A couple final things here on what men experience in dating. Women really have unrealistic financial expectations compared to previous generations. I know that like one of the measures that we have, one of the basic measures that we have for whether a person's successful or not is like whether they own a home. But like that's, I mean, it's out of the realm of possibility for most people unless you're making well into the six figures these days, because homes are just so expensive. And women, you know, go home to their fathers, and their fathers, you know, who worked, you know, as plumbers or electricians or at some union factory job or whatever, and this, you know, they've got this nice 2-story home and this big backyard, and then they expect the men that they meet to have that exact same thing. And like they don't understand that for men to have that same lifestyle, they would have to make like 3 to 4 times what that woman's father made. And so like I think that's again a very difficult thing for men, because like if quote unquote having my shit together means that I own a home and have a super nice car and have tons of money to go on vacations, like, well, I'm a fucking baller and I'm in big high demand. So but I mean, you can have a very successful career and a good job and a good life and just not have those things because it's so expensive and the cost of living is so high. The other thing is that with women's rising economic and educational achievement, I mean, women are graduating college at a greater rate than men are now, which is great. Women are actually, I think women under 30 or 40, I think it's under 40, now own more homes than do men of the same age cohort. So women are doing really well, but then women, and this is just, if you want to understand a lot about how we select mates, read David Buss's Evolution of Desire. I'm listening to it right now. It's phenomenal. But women want to date up and across, meaning they want to date men who have at least as much wealth as they do or more. And if your initial response is to think, no, that you're full of shit, Jeff, that's just you being a misogynist. It's not. That is what the data says. That's not my opinion. Like I didn't just decide, oh, I'm going to make some shit up today. Like that's what the fucking data says. It says that women want men who make more money, and actually it shows that women who, the highest achieving women, are even more adamant about the fact that the men that they date and the man that they're with has to make as much, if not more, and be as successful, if not more successful than themselves. So again, it narrows the pool of men that are going to meet those criteria. Okay, that was a lot, ladies. Now it's your turn. So what women experience in modern dating is that desired men are often non-committal. So a lot of the women out there, they go on dates. This guy's super cute. He's super nice. He's generous. He has all the qualities that she wants. He has his shit together. Maybe he even does own a home. And then, after the first date or the second date or whenever it happens, they have sex, they hook up, and then suddenly he's gone. And that sucks. It's awful, and I'll just say that right up front. Ghosting is awful, and men should not do it. And it's shitty that we have a scenario and basically a dynamic where a lot of men can get away with that sort of behavior. That's hard, and it's very confusing for women when you have this great date, you have this great connection, you want to have a relationship, and then the man just disappears, or like, just even if he doesn't ghost, he just is like, no, that's not what I really want. I just want to, play the field and screw around. I can understand that's very frustrating for women, because most women, in my experience, and ladies, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what's again demonstrated when women fill out surveys and things, is that most women want a monogamous long-term relationship that is moving towards marriage. Not all, but most. So when they can't find that, it's obviously very frustrating. The other thing that can happen for women is that they experience a lot of men who lack maturity and independence. Quote I use in the original post is, a lot of men are kind of behaving like grown children looking for a mama. And that's not a good look, and it's not what women want to be. As I mentioned the earlier thing about women typically are attracted to men that are like their fathers, and their fathers are strong, powerful men who protected them and raised them well, hopefully. And women want that kind of a man in their life. They want a man who, is a leader, is strong, is powerful. That doesn't mean that like he's overbearing or doesn't listen to her, but they don't want like a child that they basically have to like parent or take care of, right? That's not what modern women are looking for, and too often that's what they're finding. Similar, a lot of men just lack sophistication. I mean, and this is actually frustrating for me, because as a man myself, a lot of my friends, like, I'm like, do you guys ever fucking read books? Do you do anything besides play video games? Do you listen to podcasts? Like, do you have any ideas? And a lot of them do, but there's also just a fair number of dudes I run into, and I'm like, I don't know what you do with your time other than like scroll through Instagram and TikTok, and I mean, you don't have anything to say. This is a huge problem actually I run into with my clients who want to learn cold approach. They're like, well, what do I talk to the girl about? And I'm like, whatever you know and whatever you like to talk about. This isn't like some secret code. Mostly when you talk to a woman and you try to get her number, you're just having a normal conversation, but you're just expressing that you like her and you want to get her number and take her on a date. It's not like, I mean, there's some art to it, and there's practice to it, and there are techniques that I can help guys with. But if you don't have anything to talk about, I mean, what the fuck are we doing here, guys? And then there's a lot of guys who just don't have a real clear direction in life, which when you're young, I think women need to be a little bit more forgiving of that. If a guy's young, he's in his 20s, or even his late 20s, but he's not exactly sure like what he wants to do with his life, like, that's okay. He'll figure it out, as long as he has some interest and some ambition and has some ideas. And I think the ambition part is the most important, is that you can see in a man that he wants more for himself and more for his family and more for the people that he surrounds himself with. That's the kind of man you want to look for. And again, women often find men who are not these things, right? Who don't have a clear direction. I would say that a lot of men have substance abuse issues. So, drinking, drug use. I've had more than one woman tell me that she showed up on a date and the guy was just fucking hammered. So, and that may be partially what he's trying to kill his social anxiety. But unfortunately, a lot of men do have substance abuse issues. And for some of the reason I'm mentioning, right, they have a hard time finding a mate. They are not as successful as their fathers because they can't afford a house because of the cost of living. Maybe they don't have clear direction because they lacked a good father figure, or they just lack any sort of a mentor. And so that's part of the project of this blog, is to help, to help everyone, but especially for men. I hope I'm giving some good advice out there that can help them get a job, do better with the ladies, and live better lives, so that they don't fall into those traps of substance abuse and alcoholism and things like that. And I mean, I should bring up here too that society ignores this, but men are far more likely to commit suicide than women. And part of the reason, right, is that they don't have clear direction in life, and then they combine that with substance abuse, and that's a very, very bad recipe and can lead to some dark roads. A couple other things that women experience in the modern dating marketplace that are not great. A lot of men just aren't prepared for marriage or fatherhood, despite claiming to want it. And so, like, if you meet this guy and he's like, yeah, I want to get married and have kids and have a family, but then, like, he behaves like a child, doesn't make good money, and can't take care of himself, let alone, like, the woman he's with or their children where they have them, then obviously, like, that's a mismatch. And I think a lot of women get frustrated with that. One thing I will say here about marriage, and this I think would do well for everyone to understand, is that we kind of expect too much out of marriage. We expect that our marriage partner is therapist, lover, father, mother, friend, confidant. There's only so many roles that a person you're married to can play, and sometimes I think we want to rely on that person to play every role and to fill every void that we have in our life. And if you're not happy with yourself, you're not going to be happy in a relationship. That's 100% true. And the other thing I would say about marriage is that if you're not going to have kids, there's really no point to getting married. It's just, in that case, it's just a contract that you're stuck with that the state is going to enforce. And whoever makes more money is at risk of losing money, like half of their assets to their partner, which is kind of bullshit. Like, I get why that was the case back in the 1950s when women were basically prohibited from going to school or working. But now women are doing as well, if not better, than men, and there's no reason that we should have alimony or allow people to take half of the assets from a marriage. But that's what you're doing if you sign up for a marriage. Now, if there's children involved, that you should get married, is that it protects the children. Because if there is a divorce, then the state is going to intervene, and they're going to do what's best in the case of the child. And that's really important, because if left to their own devices, sometimes people will not do that, unfortunately. So otherwise, however, if you want to get married, like, but you don't want children, that doesn't really make any sense. There's nothing that would prevent you from just being with someone indefinitely and effectively be married, but, like, just not, have the contract that then you have to get out of if something bad happens or if someone has to leave. So that's just my 2 cents on marriage. Two other things that women experience in modern dating: a lot of men just don't groom themselves very well. Like, my dudes, shave your neck, trim your fingernails, trim your body hair if it's gross, right? If you've got a bunch of back hair, or your chest hair is just massive, again, trim it down to some degree, like, have it under control. I mean, women like hair on a man, most do at least, but, like, it doesn't need to be fucking Tarzan level. Groom your beard. I mean, I probably should have shaved this morning, but, as you can see, I'm not exactly dressed to the nines here. A lot of men just don't groom themselves well and don't dress very well. Like, they just are sloppy. I guess the simplest advice I could give to my dudes out there is dress like a gay man. Like, look at what gay men wear and dress like that. Like, because gay men look attractive, and there's a reason, like, women always, like, joke that the men they're most attracted to are gay men, because gay men keep themselves in shape and they tend to dress well. Again, those are just generalizations there, and that's one thing that I help my coaching clients with, is to develop a style and a look that's all your own, because a lot of guys just don't have much fashion sense whatsoever. The last thing, and this is kind of a both problem, is that there's huge political differences right now. Men are trending way more conservative, and women are trending way more liberal, and that obviously can create tension, especially given how polarized we are. What I would say about that is mostly it's something that you don't need to talk about with the other person and doesn't really matter. I know that people think that everything we believe politically matters, and I'm not arguing that what we do as a nation does not matter, but our capacity as individuals to actually change government policy is very, very small. It's basically nothing, right? We can vote every 4 years or 2 years. We can advocate. We can make our voices heard. We can go to protests. But beyond those handful of things that we can do, and between, and most of the time we need to spend like working and taking care, and like, who wants to spend all of their time worried about politics? Like, I feel bad for people who sit all day and watch Fox News and like just watch hateful lies constantly spewing from pretty blonde girls all day. Like, that's got to make you fucking miserable. I can't imagine why someone would choose to do that. Political differences between a man and a woman doesn't need to be a big problem. We can still have civil conversations, and we can still respect each other at the end of the day, and that's true for men and women in relationships. There are some other problems here with the modern dating marketplace where we are at cross purposes. And what do I mean by that? So men experience a scarcity of attractive partners. As mentioned before, it's very difficult for men to match with women that they find genuinely attractive because of dating apps. And one thing to keep in mind here is that dating apps have essentially put looks on steroids. So men experience a scarcity of attractive partners. Women and opportunities. Women experience a scarcity of quality relationships. So for the amount of women that are seeking like a quality long-term relationship with a handsome man that she is attracted to, there aren't enough of those men who are offering those kinds of relationships. There's lots of fuckboys out there, and there's lots of dudes who will tell you that they're non-monogamous or whatever, but there's not a lot of guys who are monogamous and offering quality relationships, at least not the type of guys that women want. As I mentioned, dating apps amplify this, right? So then what happens as a result of how dating apps function? Men lower their standards for more opportunities, and this is why so many women get ghosted. Because women match with attractive men who won't commit. Because you have to understand, from the man's perspective, he's already lowered his standards. And again, if you read or listen to David Buss's Evolution of Desire, men are willing to lower our standards for sexual opportunities. That sounds shitty, but it is what it is. We're not going to, that's evolution. So, if you want to argue with hundreds and thousands and millions of years of human and hominid evolution, be my guest, but you may as well be an old man shaking your fist at the clouds, because it's not going to change anytime soon. That's just the way it goes, so we may as well accept it. Like, that's how it is. Anyways, men lower their standards. Women match with attractive men who won't commit. The woman's like, oh my god, this guy's really hot. Like, he's super cute, and like, I'd be super happy to have him wife me up. And then that guy ghosts or tells her he doesn't want a relationship because he knows that, like, this is not the best that he can get. It's not even close. And if he did just want to like have sex with women on that level, he could have variety and not have a commitment. Which, one thing I'll just say, ladies, is, when do men decide to get married? When do they decide to commit long term? And I will tell you, because I've done it twice. I've not gotten married twice, but I've committed to a long term relationship twice. It's when the man is like, you know what, this woman adds value to my life. She's beautiful, and she's probably just about as good as I can hope to do, given the schmuck that I am. That is when men are like, yep, I'm going to go ahead and be with this woman and commit to her. Until that happens, that he's not going to commit. And one thing that I think, I actually haven't written about this, but it has occurred to me, is that if you're a woman and the only thing you're bringing to the table is sexy times, but like, you're not making the man's life better in any other way, then what are you offering that he can't get out in the open market? Not really that much. And if you think that sounds callous, it's not. It's the same thing that women expect from men. How does this man make the woman's life better? Well, maybe he takes her on camping trips. Maybe he teaches her a new hobby. Maybe he cooks. I love to cook, and any woman who's with me, I will cook my ass off for her because I want to show her that I care and provide value to her life, other than just like, the D. We need to ask ourselves, and I talked about this in the initial podcast I did on dating and what to do if you're single. We need to look at, like, are we adding value to this other person commensurate to the value that they're providing me? Because if not, then it's not going to work. In any case, going back to kind of the whole problem with dating apps, and this is just kind of put the capstone on it. The fact of it is, and again, studies show this is not my opinion, so don't get mad at me, women are targeting the top 10 to 20% best looking and most successful men. So by definition, those guys can kind of do whatever the fuck they want. Now, this doesn't excuse their bad behavior. I wish, again, I think ghosting and flaking is horrible, and it's there's no justification for it whatsoever. And I think that if men say that men shouldn't bait and switch, right? Say, yeah, oh yeah, I'm totally looking for a monogamous relationship, but then not look for a long monogamous relationship when it comes down to it. But because women are targeting those top 10 to 20% of men, like all women are targeting those same dudes, those guys have their pick of basically any woman they want to be with. And so, I mean, that's what's going on here. If people want to understand like why modern dating is so hard and why people are having less sex and fewer relationships, like that's why. Because it's great for the top 10 to 20% best looking men. And I mean, it's always been great if you're a really hot chick. Like, I mean, life has always been easy and will always be easy. But for everyone else, if you're not like a super hot dude, or if you're not, a very, very attractive woman, it's just harder. You can't match up because the numbers don't make sense. They're not going to work. The last point I'll make here is that if we look at what men value and what women value, the number one thing that women value in a mate, and again, this is not my opinion, this is what women report themselves, is they want a man who is financially and socially successful, a man with status, wealth, and who's solid and confident. Men want beautiful, feminine women. So one of the problems that we're now running into even more now is that people are shaming age gap relationships. And the unfortunate part of that is that women are most attractive. Sometime, probably every woman, the most beautiful she ever is sometime between 18 and let's say 35, just to give a wide window. Right? But at some point, and this is true for men too, right? We stop looking as good because youth makes us beautiful. But because men value beauty, and part of the reason that men value beauty and youth is that young, beautiful women are fertile. So the number one thing that men value is beauty and youth, because it didn't do men any good to have sex with women if those women couldn't bear children, evolutionarily. Okay, so what does this mean in practical terms? What it means in practical terms is there's oftentimes a really good match that can happen between a younger woman and an older man. I think especially women are shamed out of having those types of relationships because of the social discourse. And I'll point out here that that whole discourse is pretty toxic, and it's actually like misogynistic. And here's why. You're basically telling women that are young women, you're not smart enough to decide what's in your own best interests. You don't know who you want to have sex with. I know better than you. Like, think of how paternalistic that is to do that. That's absurd. So here's my advice. Age is but a number. Obviously, there are going to be some maturity issues between someone who's, say, 18 years old and someone who's 37. It's unlikely that those people are going to like share a lot in common, and for that reason, like, relationships might not work. However, if it does, it does. And if two consenting adults have a good time together and they each get what they need from the other person, then no one should give a fuck. And it's fine. And you shouldn't let anyone shame you into thinking otherwise. And a lot of women, especially young women, are leaving their value on the table to like hook up with these younger dudes who aren't ready for commitment and aren't solid guys and may never be solid guys, when if they dated just slightly older, I'm not saying you need to date, a guy in his 40s or 50s, but if you dated a guy like in his late 20s or early 30s who had his shit together a little bit more and had more value to give you, you might have a better chance of having a long-term successful relationship. Kind of to summarize that section though, that we are putting cross purposes a lot, which isn't useful. So what to do? I'll make other posts, and I already have other posts on what you should actually do if you are single and don't want to be, and you can check those out. I'll make more podcasts. I'm in the process of doing that now. But for now, on this topic of the modern dating marketplace, release the gender-based resentment. It's counterproductive and unattractive. If you go into a date thinking all men are narcissists, right? Or if a dude goes into a date thinking all women are gold diggers, like, that's what do you think is going to happen? You're gonna not like each other. You're already setting yourself up to feel negative toward the other person as a product of their identity, which is not useful. Just because you've had bad experiences with men, or just because you've had bad experiences with women, does not mean that that particular woman on that date or that particular man on that date is that way. Give them a chance. Be open-minded and let go of the hate. Let go of the anger and frustration that you feel. What we experience as men and women, we experience as a collective, meaning that, like, as a man, I experience what like, because I'm, interact with lots of women while I'm single, I experience what all women are like almost like a hive mind, and women experience that thing in reverse, right, of what like most men are like. But as individuals, every individual is unique and they're not representative of the group. So just because in general all men are blah, or in general all women are like this, that woman or that man isn't that way, or at least is likely to not be. So give them a chance. Let go of the resentment. Let go of the anger. It's not their fault that, things are shitty and hard. So be open-minded. Also, communicate clearly and kindly. Ladies, stop flaking. Just say, like, if you're not interested in a guy, just say, hey, I don't think it's going to work. And I've said this before, but if he texts you back a wall of text saying, like, how you let him on and stuff, just block his ass. Who cares? But at least you know that you did the right thing and you communicated. You said, hey, I'm not free tonight, or actually I'm just not interested. Dudes, and I mean, again, men shouldn't flake either. I'm just saying, I think there tends to be a gendered response there, where women tend to flake on dates more and men tend to ghost more, just the way that, like, the dynamics work. But obviously it's bad for either sex to do that to the opposite sex. So don't flake, but also don't ghost. And especially guys out there who, hook up with a girl, but you decide, hey, like, actually I'm not, interested in having a relationship with this person. I mean, I would say you should generally try to avoid having sex with people that you don't want to have relationships with. Although, I mean, it's fine. I mean, if you have a fun date and one thing leads to another and that's what happens, that's totally fine. And I don't think that anyone's in any way committed to having a relationship with someone just because you had sex with them. But on the other hand, if, like, you're going out and doing that all the time and having sex with lots of people and never having relationships with them and then ghosting them afterwards, like, that's not cool. You're poisoning the water hole for everyone. So, and if you do have intimacy, right? If you do have sexy times with someone, just fucking, and you don't want a relationship, just tell them, like, hey, I had a great time. You're amazing, but I'm not looking for a relationship right now. Whatever your excuse is, just be honest. Don't just disappear into the void, though. That's like the ultimate shitty behavior. And it forces you to, it allows you to kind of get away with things that you shouldn't. And one thing I'll mention too here is that if you treat people badly, karma's a big bitch, and I've written about that on the blog. Karma's going to come. So if you treat people poorly, eventually, like, you're going to have something bad happen to you. And I wouldn't wish bad things to happen on anyone, but I also think that if we put negativity into the universe, it's going to return to us in some form or fashion at some point. So don't do that. Stay optimistic. I would say prioritize in-person meetings over apps if you can. That's going to be a more realistic reflection of what your value is in the marketplace. And the other thing is that with apps, people are just going to tend to be more picky regardless. One thing that makes people attracted to each other is not just how someone looks, which is really all we can see on an app, right? All we can see really is their pictures. I guess there's videos in some case, and I think the fact, like, you go on Hinge, you can make a voice recording, that's brilliant. But because it's that kind of stuff, right? It's how someone, what their energy is like, what's their vibe, right? What do they sound like? How do they use their body language? You can get a much better sense of, like, if you're going to have compatibility with someone if you meet them in person versus the apps. But admittedly, I think we're probably stuck with the apps at this point. I don't know if you guys have a suggestion of how we could go without them. I mean, if everyone agreed to go to in-person meeting, that would be awesome, but I just don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I certainly will, but and then the other thing is help each other. I think people don't help each other enough in this life, in the modern world. So maybe you are struggling with dating, but you know someone that you could introduce to your friend who might be a great partner for them. Again, embrace that good karma by putting good energy into the world. So help people. It's just a good thing to do. It's going to make that person like you more. So it's not just altruistic in that like it benefits the other person. It also benefits you. You're going to feel better about yourself, and they're going to feel better about you. And really, you're going to put that positive juju into the universe, and you'd be surprised what will happen if you help some people out and you do the right thing and put positive energy out there. You'll find that returns to you, and maybe that means that you help someone meet their mate, and then 6 months down the line, that person that you introduced them to knows someone that they introduced to you. Stuff like that can happen pretty easily. Last points here to kind of conclude. Again, state of the modern dating marketplace is tough. I know that. We kind of went through the challenges, some of why men and women find themselves at cross purposes. So the last few things just is that remember that people are mostly fundamentally good in seeking connection. None of us decided to create a system or dynamics that work this way. We were born in the world that we are, and we have the technology that we have. We are products of our evolutionary history, and we just have to work with that stuff. We can't change it. The second thing is, remember, the bad dating kind of poisons the environment for everyone. So when we're not nice to the opposite sex, when we're mean-spirited, even if that's just going on Reddit and bitching, that's not good. It doesn't make things easier for anyone. And I would say, like, if you're spending a lot of time watching TikTok in particular, about like women complaining about their boyfriends, or this guy who cheated on them, or men complaining about women. I mean, there's a whole cottage industry of men hating women, or being misogynistic towards women about their dating choices, and in vice versa. There's a whole industry of women who make content and make money by making women mad at men. And that is toxic stuff. It's not good. And if you want to be successful, you should stop consuming it, and you should stop putting up with people who do consume it. Again, being negative and having negative energy is bad. It makes you feel bad, and it produces bad results. So, avoid negativity at all costs, especially that kind of negativity. For anyone who's out there who wants help, I've mentioned before, I have experience as a dating coach. I'd be happy to help you. A dating coach can really help point out the obvious mistakes that you're making, help you to improve your style, your presentation, your kind of how you interact on a date, and can lead you to quite a bit more success. So for ladies and men out there, if you are curious to get some help, my email is JALLEN getbetter@gmail.com. That'sjallengetbetter@gmail.com. You can hit me up, and then we can talk about whether a coaching program is right for you. And if you just want to hit me up, you can just hit me up too, and just send me an email. Tell me what you think. You can also drop your comments in the section below the post, or if you're watching this on YouTube, I think the comment section is open as well. If you're mean or a jerk, I'm going to delete you and block you, so don't do that. I think that is it for today, friends. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. And until next time, I hope that you get better soon and you win the game of life. Namaste.